good morning and welcome back to the lecture series. We are in our third module now. It's titled Commentary on the Genre of Novel. We are majorly discussing the quintessential work which is understood as the first novel written by Miguel Cervantes. It's called Don Quixote. So, in continuation to our previous lecture, we were talking about prologue, I remember. So, Cervantes' prologue of Don Quixote may be called a prologue about or of a prologue, just like the rest of the novel is a commentary on how a new genre, which is a breakaway from epic tragedy, chivalric romance, should be written. He's also training the reader to read this new genre, the novel. So, the prological condition defines the characteristic power of Cervantine irony. Now, we have to understand that this irony cannot be parallel with, cannot be analogized with the irony that we understand in the Enlightenment sense, to simply apply the common notion of irony which has been shaped by the Enlightenment to inform or to understand Cervantes' prologue, and the plural origin of this prologue would be too simplistic. Actually, it wouldn't justify the complexity of the phenomenon, the literary phenomenon that Don Quixote is. So, Cervantes' prologue belongs to romantic irony. The prologue's origin offers the possibility that while irony is actually present, its original thought will remain inaccessible and even unnameable. We cannot access or name the source of this irony. However, its presence will show from time to time through concrete effects that it has on the work. So, the plurality of the prologue's origin creates an odd communicative situation. Many instances actually go on to determine in their multiple presence, in their multiplicity, a multiple meaning, a plural meaning of a single instance, and they determine this instance as suspended, incomplete and unfinished. There could be so many ways of looking at one instance, so many meanings that could be rendered to this one instance. That's what Cervantes is trying to arrive at. So, a Cervantine quotation escapes both the conscious and the unconscious moments. In fact, the very ability to use language may be a function of quotation. The poetics that we see informing Gustave Flaubert and James Joyce's works later on is first anticipated, first detected, first visible in Cervantes. So, Cervantes claims that when we speak, we quote language as a system which even allows us to speak. Here we see that Don Quixote is constantly pointing to the constructed nature of different institutions, which is path breaking in itself, the constructed nature of language, of society, social mores, and so forth. So, Don Quixote explores the issue of originality in general, as well as the issue of its own originality, in the light of the possibility that the original source can only be first captured through speculation of this source. The source per se is not there. We speculate, we confabulate, we imagine. So, the source can be fathomed, can be contrived or conjured through this synthesis of intention and instinct of the author and the reader, as well as the characters. So, the specificity of Cervantine origin comes to the fore in the prologuist's ironic turn to the reader. So Friedrich Schlegel redefines irony in terms of parabasis in opposition to the new classical theories of irony as antiphrasis or verbal dissimulation, something that we find in French, in Voltaire's writing, and in English in Jonathan Swift's works. So, Cervantine origin affects the novel in the very manner of its telling and is present in the novel's narrative technique. It's intrinsic to the, to the narrative technique. Don Quixote is narrated by several authors. We see that the criticism speaks of El Primer, which is none other than the fictive or the factual historian Cide Hamete Benengeli, the historiator Arabigo, the Arab, the Arabic historian, who is also El Segundo Autor, the first person editor, the avid reader who is first reading about Don Quixote and then purportedly starts writing about this character, a reader that Benengeli is constantly, drawing from different sources, picking up every scrap of paper that is found on the street, and that's how he is bringing together the character of, uh, Don Quixote. So the provenance is multiple. Cervantes is very cleverly historicizing the origin of Don Quixote, the character who is a figment of his imagination, right? We also see the role of the translator here, the Morisco boy. So the analysis of involution in Cervantes's narrative technique is done through examining the relation between the two main methods of narration that is used in the novel. So, juxtaposed to the novel's fictitious claim as well as its claim to historical origin, the narrative, is composed through editing, which is apparently done by Benengeli, the Segundo Autor, and through translation, which is done by the Morisco boy. The two techniques are intimately affected by speculative involution. So, I mean, it's very difficult to know the origin. That's what we are coming to. Some Don Quixote that existed in some society at some point in time is being read about by a historian. So we are so many times displaced from this origin, and then the historian is discovered by Cervantes. The historian researches and writes about Don Quixote, which in turn is discovered by Cervantes. And so the historian has his own baggage. He comes from another culture. He's an Arab. So his perception comes between what Don Quixote is and probably what he understands about Don Quixote. Then the work is being further translated, which is being read by the author. So we are so many times displaced from the origin, the question of one singular definitive origin, one singular definitive truth is being flouted here. And this is the very essence of novel, right? Insofar as novelists are themselves, striving towards a greater realism, the literary Quixote can serve as a device for pointing out the absurdity and the unreality of literature in general. So, literary work and art, a piece of art, cannot be real. And this metafictional quality constantly informs Cervantes' writing, where characters are becoming so three-dimensional, they're coming out of the book and starts commenting about the very work where they are characters, thereby constantly reminding the reader that this is a piece of fiction. Don't become such an avid reader as to enter into the book, otherwise you will become a Don Quixote, right? You will become mad. So, I mean, we see this this question of absurdity and unreality of literature is popular during the 18th century when Don Quixote came to its own. So, in the process of assimilation, Don Quixote, the knight, undergoes a fascinating metamorphosis. The work travels its own journey, the work realizes its own fate as if. So, the book, if we could call it a book, definitely it's a new work apart from the earlier genres, and it has its own destiny to chase. It has three stages through which it goes. At first, one sees Don Quixote as a buffoon, a madman who belongs in a farce. Then ambiguities begin to creep in, and one has a Don Quixote still ridiculous, still a buffoon, but who at the same time is also beginning to look strangely noble, even saintly. And then by the time we are in the third stage, towards the end of the century, the reader discovers the romantic Don Quixote. A thinking man, the essence of the thinking man in him, an idealistic and noble hero, right? So this is the metamorphosis, the journey that we see. Now, the protagonist as a novel hero, we see Cervantes declaring to his readers that unlike the epic that rests on a known oral tradition, his protagonist is his sole brainchild. But Cervantes is also contradicting himself. He has drawn Don Quixote from some historical origin. So, how could this, you know, character be his sole brainchild? We could treat this in some ways as the forerunner, the harbinger of the historical novel. I mean, where a historical character, a real character that existed in history, enters into the imaginative space, the creative space, and the author does new things, experimental things to this character. So, I mean, the and the protagonist, the character that becomes the protagonist of a novel or a short story, has a new life to live altogether, apart from his or her historical identity and the historical facts that are associated with this character. So, it wouldn't be correct actually to say that Don Quixote is the sole brainchild of Cervantes. Don Quixote is a construction from the knightly tradition, which belongs to a completely different chronotype from that of the Renaissance period, where Cervantes is sitting and writing. The character is reminiscent of romance in medieval Europe. So, in the Renaissance world, the knight concept is not prevalent in social reality to the extent that it is a complete misfit in the contemporary time space from where Cervantes is writing, like I said, and so it is deeply influenced by an earlier tradition which is almost vanishing in the current time. So, through crafting a character like Don Quixote, Cervantes makes a commentary on how a novel's character is formed through a friction, through a conflict, in this case between the medieval imagination and the Renaissance reality. And this is something that so many theorists, so many critics that try to theorize novel have also said. Georg Lukács and Bakhtin, they all talk about the problem at the heart of the novel, which acts as its propellant, its incentive. So, while the episodes speak to the to the polyglossic society of Spain that comprises the real world and the real people that Cervantes is tangibly, adjacent with, or the kind of society where he's actually sitting and writing, physically sitting and writing, the character that he creates, Don Quixote, is the result of inheriting of inheriting a past literary tradition. So this friction between the way the Renaissance society see Don Quixote, and Don Quixote sees himself as a result of reading a lot of medieval romance, generates the literary reality. So towards the beginning of the novel, we might harken back how a priest is burning, he's destroying some books from the previous era. Uh, and so this goes on to throw a glimpse at what remnant tradition, what residual tradition actually means, what happens to artistic works that do not directly speak to the horizon of expectations of the current period. They are destroyed. They're destroyed, they're neglected, they go take a back seat in some library, and Don Quixote is actually rescuing these books, bringing them home. They all belong to the genre of medieval romance. He starts reading them avidly till he becomes part of the textual reality, cut off from his contemporary Renaissance reality, becomes a knight while reading about the knights, right? So we see that the character of Don Quixote, his name is something else, his real name is something else. He belongs to the he is a landed peasant, and so I mean, access to book is making him something besides himself. He's transforming his ordinary conditions into some kind of extraordinariness to which he would like to subscribe, to which with which he would like to identify, and to which he would like to belong. So the literary reality unfurls the conflict between two different time space. The time space of Cervantes, the historical time space where Cervantes is writing, where this man, this peasant, actually belongs, Alonso Quixano, and the literary world where he has thrown himself into the world of medieval romance, which does not exist anymore in reality. And this friction is leading to all the laughter, all the irony, and confusion. It lends dynamicity to the narrative. So Don Quixote is portrayed as an upside down hero. He is nothing that we associate with the classic understanding or classic figure of the hero. So Don Quixote's first adventure is precisely the fact that he has no adventures. He wants to churn out, he wants to kind of conjure some adventure out of nowhere. So, very unlike the true knights errant that he is reading about, Don Quixote manages to ride in full armor for an entire day of his life, encountering no adventure, no one, nothing, right? He's riding on a horse. He is physically also, his appearance evokes laughter in a way. He's a lanky, famished man riding on a weak horse, imagining himself as a chivalric hero, but he meets no adventure. Right. This is well in the plan of writing a parody of the books of chivalry, but it also points to one aspect of the parody which is often neglected or disregarded: the fact that the parody is intrinsic to the figure of Don Quixote himself. And Don Quixote, the character that emerges from Alonso Quixano, could be parody personified without even needing to refer to, oppose, or even juxtapose with the reality. He is what parody is. He is the concentrate of that. So through Don Quixote's figure, we find a careful, studied antithesis of the epic hero. He's anything but the epic hero. Even if the no windmills or flocks of sheep ever appeared in this work, Don Quixote as a character would still be a parody of the books of chivalry. So Homer, Virgil, Ariosto, Martorell are all authors of epic texts, be it narratives in verse or in prose, and they deal with great exploits, with battles, with kings, and kingship or wars. Uh, in a spirit of admiration, it inspires, like I have already discussed, epic inspires awe. Now, Cervantes was a well read man, and in his Quixote, he greatly invests not only uh, the romances of chivalry, but also the Spanish romancero, the essence of Ariosto, and so on. So Don Quixote surpasses his fellow characters, however, uh, mainly in his madness. He is a mad character, not in any other quality, right? So, critics who insist on the great values incarnated in the knight must consider Don Quixote's madness under a positive light. So, his madness also comments on the decadent society that he inhabits, the decadent world where he lives. Don Quixote is a complete fool. His folly is, however, the most sublime virtue that he possesses amid the kind of society where he lives. Therefore, Don Quixote is also saintly. He's a sublime hero. And this is something that many critics would go on to say. So, Don Quixote, we see, is born old in his 50s in Cervantes' book. We don't know anything about his youth, uh, about his past. His youth does not exist in the book, but his non existent youth is not a mere vacuum. In this lack, Don Quixote is conceived precisely in contrast with the epic hero that we are following right from or even before the time of birth in many cases. So, the upside down hero must lack the unusual birth and breeding in the same manner that his life comes only very slowly to its crisis. So, there is a lack of, extraordinariness of things happening in this man's life simply because he does not belong to the era of romance. His energy seems to have more to do with his conviction, his adrenaline, than with good physical condition. He is not even physically fit, given his age, given uh, how wealthy he is. He's not a very well preserved man. Well into his 50s, and so in no way does he qualify as a knight, right? Now, Cecil Bora says, I quote, the power which heroes display in action can be felt in their mere presence. When they appear, other men know them for superior beings and wonder who they are, unquote. The few times the Don Quixote succeeds in arms in terms of prowess or in terms of physical fight are only those in which he takes advantage of the surprise that he causes, and his opponents are taken aback only because they never sense any power in his presence as a hidalgo, as a peasant, a noble peasant. So Bora further says, I quote, though physical strength is an essential part of a hero's endowment, he is no animal or devoid of wits, unquote. In contrast, Don Quixote's wit appears precisely in those moments of calm when he is paradoxically far away from being clever or ingenioso. So, further, I quote Bora, who talks extensively about heroism, says that heroism, for its own sake, is perhaps exceptional. More commonly, heroes devote their talents to some concrete cause which provides scope for action and an end to which they can direct their efforts. Unquote. So there is no need to insist on the fact that Don Quixote has no plan, no ready plan. He simply expects adventures to come to him, thus enabling the irony of the novel. And he indeed transforms, and he must, transform common occurrences, humdrum life around him, into ventures. He's spinning the yarn in the air, so to say. So the barber's basin must become Mambrino's helmet. Furthermore, Don Quixote's good knightly deeds, such as trying to save a lady, often leads to catastrophic consequences. Now, a hero is conceived as defender of some cause. Generally, it is either religion or a political structure or a political body that is translated into the epic as a community or a country that must be loved and fought for. That is exactly the sentiment from which the epic hero emerges. He's the savior of a community, of a people, of a humanity and civilization. Quite in contrast, Don Quixote is not concerned about religion, nor is he a patriot in the strict sense of the term, or even aligned or affiliated to his current society. He has no thought of joining the Spanish forces. His enemy is not the Turks per se, but so his enemy is not the Turks per se, nor the Protestants, but some imaginary giants and fantastical armies. One could even doubt whether Don Quixote has a country, because country talks about geographical limits. Uh, Don Quixote, like Milan Kundera would say, belongs to that era where novel is just beginning and these historical determinants have not yet emerged. His horizon is still free. We do not see border lines that kind of cut across or intercept that horizon. He's traveling in free space and time on his horse, right? To Don Quixote, Mycomicon is more real than his native La Mancha, and he prefers words to realities. He's actually playing with words also. We will come to that. A hero is always born in some place, belongs to some part of the world, to some time. But Don Quixote, contrarily, is almost spaceless and timeless. Cervantes puts Don Quixote in an ordinary humdrum setting where nothing or almost nothing, adventurous, fantastic is likely to happen. So he makes them happen. Borrow further says, I quote, the career of a hero needs, at least for artistic completeness, some kind of realization. The efforts and the preparations must lead to an impressive end, unquote. Now, the unity and significance in Don Quixote's career comes from within himself. This career has no recognition outside of him, has no meaning outside of him, not even any appreciation. So the reader is not concerned with what he will accomplish, because everything is being spinned in the air out of his own imagination. There aren't real giants, real opponents, but he is conjuring those. So the reader is more concerned with what will happen to him. Many a times he gets battered, he gets beaten up. Because of his madness in the narrative. So it is not hard to imagine a hero that is infatuated with himself encountering a fierce, hungry lion, for example, and challenging the beast. And this is very common to the description of a hero's exploit, meeting a wild beast and defeating it in the end. A poet could take advantage of the situation such as this in order to provide an ending to his narrative. The tragic mistake, the hero as a victim of his own prowess, right? On the other hand, so what I'm trying to get at is that there is a lot of poeticality, there is a lot of you know, uh, inspiration in heroes, the classic heroes exploits, such as meeting a lion, either defeating the lion or getting defeated by it. Both could lead to some intense tension, uh, adrenaline, excitement, and romance, of course. Contrastively, Don Quixote is not even allowed this kind of heroic mistake. Neither does he defeat nor gets defeated by a lion. The lion yawns at him and turns its back to Don Quixote. So, even the thinnest possibility of adventure does not exist in a Renaissance society. So, like that of a hero's, Don Quixote's selflessness uh, uh, is present, uh, and there is no short sightedness thereby. In the words of Bora, I quote, though the hero's first and most natural need is to display the prowess and win the glory which he feels to be his right, he is ready to do so for some cause which does not immediately concern his personal interest, but attracts him because it gives him a chance to show his worth. Unquote. Now, in the case of Don Quixote, thirst for glory very clearly excludes material greed. Don Quixote is looking to become famous, looking to awe people. He is not materially greedy. He leaves tangible ambition, tangible positions for Sancho. So he's gifting some island, an imaginary island, to his squire. And this island is available to only to the squire's imagination. So, like the classic hero, Don Quixote is, to quote Bora, extremely sensitive about his honor, unquote. Public recognition of his value is perhaps even more important for Don Quixote than it is for the classic hero. So he's looking for fame, recognition, looking to inspire some awe among people, looking to be loved and honored than some material uh, goods. So Don Quixote, like I have already mentioned, has no past. He was born in Cervantes's book in his 50s. So neither does he have a future, since he lacks a definite uh, heroic goal and a well defined plan for achieving such a goal. So Don Quixote is introduced as a typical and unheroic social type who can only claim individuality through his pathological condition, through his pathological urge, his individuality, his the character that he wants to become is pathological. He is not accepted as superior by any of the novel's wisest characters, or even by the very people that he tries to save. One has the galley slaves in their mind that he's trying to save. So only ignorant people or fools admire him, revere him, and consider him as superior, and often only as a result of their acceptance of an unquestionable social hierarchy. So Don Quixote is only happily accepted when he retires to his ordinariness. Don Quixote is not accepted per se. When he goes back into the skin of the peasant that he is, the noble peasant, he is accepted. So it's only, acceptance happens only when he abandons his madness and espouses his ordinary identity. And the novel also ends with his with his death, because nothing novel can happen out of ordinariness. The exploits end, and so does the novel, right? The novel is anyway not about the ordinary peasant. It is about Don Quixote. So once this conflict, this friction is over, the novel is also over. In Cervantes's work, what holds madness up to ridicule is not reality, but it constitutes another form of literature itself. Don Quixote was not conceived as a sensible citizen that suffers attacks of madness. He's not, clinically mad per se. He's a character that is conceived as a whole, that is an alternative reality to the ones available in a Renaissance society. So the book deals with different types of literature. The epic is contrasted to the absurd, upside down world of madness, to the picaresque world, to different types of pastoral, to romances, to novel, even to literary theory. In order to have all these worlds in balance, Cervantes needs one point of reference, and therefore all the novels' worlds are seen in contrast to the outer physical reality, be it the cosmos of the curate, the barber, the niece, and so forth. Cervantes' idea of an upside down hero creates the necessity for this new ground in the literary experience. It is not a realistic portrayal of life, anything but that, which brings about the figure of this mad country gentleman. It's the upside down hero that causes well founded reality to enter into the pages of uh, a book which has both historical and fictive dimensions. And so when this classical hero enters into the textual space, or the textual actually becomes part of the ordinary man, uh, there is a kind of alternative reality that is formed. This when this upside down hero enters into the pages of the book, uh, the book of chivalric romance that he wants to posit and become. He epitomizes alternative reality. Don Quixote as a man is not only saintly and heroic, uh, much differently from the lofty hero that the epic protagonist or the tragic protagonist is. He is saintly and heroic in a different sense, and he is also incarnation of the Spanish national spirit. Eh, the figure of Don Quixote, this imaginary character, lies at the crossroads of so many different realities, a multicultural reality where uh, you know experiences of trade, experiences of Arabic chivalry, the chivalric culture of the Moors, the Renaissance reality, the Christianization, uh, all of these you know uh, kind of meet at a juncture leading to the formation of Don Quixote. So Miguel de Unamuno's Vida de Don Quixote is Sancho is an outstanding example seen in that way. I would like to stop our lecture here today, and let's meet for another round of discussions in our ensuing lectures. Thank you.